I always got a parking spot for you if you need one.
I appreciate it. Thank you. $5.
Yeah. My kids are out there, they charge you.
Pass through to your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Rack up for the water tower first one.
Nope. Well, we don't even do it.
We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have the invocation by Commissioners Ashworth.
If you bow your heads. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for this opportunity to come and work for the city of Hernando. We just asked your guidance and your direction and the decisions that may be made here tonight, and that it be thy will. For it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call. Would y'all please sign in?
Commissioner Ashworth,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Here.
Commissioner Clark,
Everybody that's coming in, would you please sign in?
if you run out of room, you can just flip the page over and start signing in on the back. We start over. Okay. I'm going to start over with the roll call. Commissioner Ashworth,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Here.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Max,
Here.
Commissioner Jordan,
Here.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Here.
Commissioner Skeen, Commissioner Chapman.
Here.
Has everyone had opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Safley,
Aye.
Commissioner Max,
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth.
Aye.
Did you do all that? No, sir. Maybe it's just a physical presence thing. Let's hope so.
I'm gonna go on and do that first. First item is PL 1840, Compel Church Daycare Facility. Request for conditional use to allow a daycare facility. The subject property is located on the west side of McIngvale Road, north of Dilworth Lane. More specifically, 1835 McIngvale Road in Section 17, Township 3, Range 7. Brook Dees, representing the owner. Mr. Cardozo, you please present the plan, staff report, and comments.
Yes, so this is Bill 1840, and as you mentioned, it's a request for a conditional use approval to allow for a daycare facility at the existing Compel Church campus on McIngvale Road. Brook Dees is here tonight representing the owner. The specific address is 1835 McIngvale Road, north of Dilworth. The reason for the request tonight is the existing site zoning is zoned R12, and so commercially zoned properties, daycare is allowed by right, but the site zoning is R12 allows the church by right, but the daycare is a conditional use in that zoning district. So that's how we got here tonight. The applicant's requesting a 20-year time limit, and they provided a supplemental traffic plan after meeting with Chief Ellis at the recommendation of the Planning Commission last month. As you know, it was tabled with the request that they meet and discuss traffic management with the police department. With this being a new meeting, I will read the approval or denial criteria for the record. That way we can frame any decision tonight around this approval or denial criteria. How this proposed use will or will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. How the proposed use will not substantially increase fire hazards. How this proposed use will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. How this proposed use will not adversely affect the general welfare of the city. how this proposed use will not overtax public utilities or community facilities, and how the proposed use conforms to the recommendations of the city's general development plan. They did provide responses to each of those, and a little specifics about the meeting with Chief Ellis and myself and the church. Chief Ellis's recommendation was, as everyone thought in the last meeting, the primary traffic concern is in the morning drop-off between 6:30 and 7:30. But with the expected number of cars, Chief Ellis thought that if the right turn in and right turn out only was marked with cones by the church each morning between those hours, it would be able, his officers would be able to handle any increased traffic on McIngvale with no left-hand turns, which would slow northbound traffic. And so there's a little rendering in there that shows generally what the cones would look like to delineate the right in and right turnout onlys. And then they did provide a proposal for their traffic flow on McIngvale, which I would recommend including as a condition of approval, if that's what y'all entertain tonight, is to include this traffic control plan. So that is a qualifier for their approval if you come back if it's deviated from. We did include site maps of the overall campus and the proposed addition, and I'm available if you've got any questions.
Anybody having a question, Mr. Cados?
I do. So I see the traffic cone picture diagram that the chief is recommending. My only concern is when that lot just to the south, that corner lot at Dilworth and McIngvale is developed, and that section of McIngvale is upgraded, you know, with the turning lane, then we're gonna slow down, we're gonna take away that lane from being able to turn into there. You see that concern? Whenever that is. But, you know, there's that short little stretch where, you know, Compel upgraded the turn down lane or whatever when they did their construction. And I'm assuming the same will happen for that lot on Dilworth and McIngvale, the corner that's been for sale for years, which we had a Dollar General or something in here last year trying to go in there. So when that McIngvale is upgraded right there, or turn the mic up. All right, so my concern is with the traffic cones, I see the chief's recommendation. It's a fix for now, but if that turning lane is ever extended to Dilworth, when that lot sells on Dilworth, right next to the church on the corner of Dilworth and McIngvale, then that turning lane is going to have to be extended to Dilworth. So then if those cones are still going to be in place, you're taking away that whole right turning lane with those cones during that hour.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
They'd have to pull them back to be on that side of their property. I do think there's a way to do a right turn in and a right turn out without including the full additional lane.
Right.
Just like you see at the North Parkway
Right.
gas station on Highway 51. They'll have to pull them back and direct the cones to be a 12-foot lane
Okay.
within their own property rather than extending the blank turn lane, which is what it is now.
Right. So it's extended into the turn lane right now.
Right now it is. It would need to be once that's fully opened up.
Okay. That was his only concern.
Any other questions, Mr. Cados? Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
I'm Brook Dees, and I'm representing Compel Church, 1935 McIngvale Road. I was out at 4767 Patton Drive in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And, Commissioner Hopkins, is that all you asked me? Okay. I'm ready for questions, Tom. I'm back again.
Y'all are okay with this, and y'all are prepared to do this every morning, 6:45 to 7:30. Y'all are committed to doing this, and I'll be honest. I did meet with the chief, and I talked to him for just a minute as well about it. And I'm good with it. I think I'm all about having another daycare. Excited about it. I am concerned about 20 years. I'd like to see how the traffic goes and make sure there's no traffic issues. And as the chief pointed out, we won't know much in a year if we do it just for a year, because the high school is going to change. The high school's moving, and so we could have a whole different set of traffic issues in 2 years. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is a shorter time frame just to revisit it in case any changes need to be made. But hopefully it doesn't mess y'all up as far as the daycare goes, so that y'all can keep your daycare in operation.
This would be a significant investment on our property. So dire need in Hernando. We all agree that there's a dire need, but in terms of the other cities, if you were to take your population of 5 and under and say, how many spots are available for that? There's only 35% of the population has spots in the city of Hernando. So that means they're going to other cities. So what we want to do is, we're not here to just serve ourselves or the people who live in Compel Church. We're here for the city of Hernando. We're here for its citizens. We're here for the city. And in doing so, that is to provide a much needed daycare. So I understand 20 years for sure, but to get 2 years and come back and revisit, I don't see any problem, so I don't mind taking that risk, but I do feel like in terms of what we're investing on the property, because it would be a new build. So we're talking about, possibly a $5 million building for us to commit to this. We would also want the city of Hernando to commit with us in this partnership. So we would request.
May I ask a question? Is the daycare the only thing that's going to go in that building? Is that that building, that's the only use?
Commissioner Thorne, that's a great question. So, and I tried to make sure I communicated that last time when we discussed this, but it is the weekend services. We'll be moving our kids' ministries in that building as well. So on Sundays, they would be using it. They would be using it on Wednesday. So it would be a dual-purpose building. But in terms of what it is serving, it would be the church on Sunday and Wednesday, but then 5 days a week, it would be.
But this conditional use application is not going to prevent that building from getting built.
Correct.
Okay. I'm okay with 5 years. I mean, agree with everything. The daycare is much needed, but, it's kind of going back to what you had mentioned about being a partner and caring about the city. And I think that's what Commissioner Jordan was bringing up. We have to think of, as the Planning Commission, forecast what does the city look like in 2 years, 5 years, based on decisions we make here. So if we make this decision for 20 years, and then something significantly happens in 3 to 4 years, that's how we're looking at it.
What do you propose is significantly going to happen?
Can't tell, I can't predict the future.
Well, like Commissioner Max
Like the
mentioned.
traffic, if McIngvale's finished out to Dilworth, or there's already a subdivision going in to the east of Compel, so just the whole traffic on McIngvale. And that subdivision could potentially come all the way to McIngvale in 3 or 4 years or 5 years.
McIngvale could get widened. The
Right.
corner on Dilworth there could be.
Because if that McIngvale is widened, like he's saying, if that turning lane goes to Dilworth, you're not gonna be able to put cones in that lane anymore. So there will have to be a different plan that has to go forward.
I don't know if it has to be a different plan. The cones may not exist, but, and by that time, we would have our parents will train. So I did include,
Have new parents every year.
Well, you have new parents every year.
well, yeah. So,
Theoretically.
but I did include that as part of our drop-off procedure that will be in our parent handbook, that this will be the procedure. This will be the expectancy. And what we can do on our property is put a sign up that say, this is a right-hand turn only from 6:30 to 7:30. That was the recommendation by
Sure.
the chief police, Ellis. And so, in terms of what we can control, in terms of partnering, we can control what we communicate to parents. We can control on what we heavily communicate to parents. It can be stressed in the parent-teacher handbook, the parent-student handbook, as well as other forms of communication by us. Also reinforced with a sign, Monday through Friday, from 6:30 to 7:30, it's gonna be a right-hand only turn. So we can't control that. The cones may or may not be there. The cones right now would only serve as a visual and kind of even a physical barrier. Now, if it were to open, Dilworth sells that corner, it sells, someone wants to come and develop, I don't know what the city of Hernando, in terms of, I know what we were required to do, to put in there to ensure it was safety, turning in to the right, and having a right-hand exit. But I'm sure if that was a requirement placed on us, then there's also going to be safety parameters around that strip of property as well. So I'm not saying we can't control the future, and we can't control that. But what I do feel like is that we're not going to go anywhere. We're in it for the long haul. I think you guys, and we have the same goal.
Like, with this conditional use application for the daycare is not the problem, it's just the traffic. That's the only concern. That's, I think everybody has said that. But, so, if it's approved at your request of 20 years, that means you're agreeing to put them cones out there for 20 years. Because that's gonna be part of it. Where in 5 years, there may be something else built and you may not need to put the cones. So that's why I think Commissioner Thorne and Jordan are recommending the 5 years to basically revisit the traffic issue. It's not gonna be an issue with the daycare itself or the church or anything like that, because the traffic pattern and needs could change.
But I did talk to, one thing with Chief Ellis in our conversation, we were basically predicting how many cars. And he said, let's say you had 100 cars coming in and out daily, and they all came between 6:30 and 7:30. He said, as a police force, we would not notice it. We would not see it. Those were his words. And I even circled back, and I even kind of doubled down on that, and I said, well, what if we get the go-ahead from the commissioners to get this conditional use permit? And we're moving ahead with the daycare. Do you want me to circle back to you with a launch date to say, hey, I just want to give you a heads up, we're launching, expecting an uptick in cars? He said, no, not at all. I don't want you to circle back with me. I will not notice. Those were his words. And so I think that what we left last week, the last meeting, I agree with you. We want safety to be the number one priority. I do feel like that we have addressed each of those safety concerns. We did meet with the chief. These were his words. And so in terms of looking at it long term, it depends on maybe who buys that, who doesn't. I don't even know what that's zoned for. I'm sure it's in the paperwork. But for us, I would be, I say 20 years, maybe that is too long. Would you guys go for 10?
So Austin, if we did a longer period of time for the conditional use and traffic became an issue, is that something that could be revisited?
If it was the result of the applicant, like if the plan wasn't being followed, or if there was something with their application that has changed from what y'all approved, that was something we could bring back.
So it's all based on the applicant, not what really happens on
If an
McIngvale?
external factor happens in the meantime, it would not probably be something we could bring back.
It would be based on us, me following through with what I said that we're gonna do, putting the sign up, putting the cones. Obviously, if something happens to inhibit us from legally putting cones out, we cannot legally do that.
That's where my mind was going after you just said that. Let's predict 5 years from now and something, the road widens, there's new development out there, increased traffic. You have to adjust your cones or the way you operate because of that change. Would that be something we could recall if it looks like it might be a hazard? Or it has to be significant to where, as long as they're following what we approved, but then something changes drastically, which they have to alter the way. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? I don't think it's coming out the way I'm thinking it.
Perspective is that there would be no northbound left-hand turns off of McIngvale. And so the cones were supplements to the sign and to the requirements of the school. And so the cones, they have to be adjusted back to get out of the lane, but still encourage a right turn in and out. That's fine. But if something was to change so drastically where the church may say, hey, McIngvale's been improved in a way, the traffic pattern with the high school shifting has allowed left-hand turns now. And that may be something we could come back and just say, okay, the problem's been fixed. And
Gotcha.
Oh, you mean like a 4-lane with a center lane, it's got a left-hand turn?
right.
I see.
And my concern is that entering the property, not exiting the property as much. So I feel like exiting the property isn't as big a deal, but entering the property is where you're gonna cause congestion. And I drive that, I'm there 5 days a week in that traffic congestion, so. And I understand Chief Ellis's perspective, but I would notice 100 more cars in that line from 6:30 to 7:30. And any
I
other
understand
motorist
that.
would.
It sounds really big, but he and his men, he wasn't the only one in the room. His assistant was there as well, and he concurred. He had the exact same conversations. And so where we left the meeting last time was us in agreement, hey, this could be a potential safety issue. The question is, does it significantly increase? you asked me to go to to
Chief.
We did so immediately. He was actually training that week, or I would have met with him the next day. So we met when as soon as he was back in town. And from his professional opinion on being on the police force, where he's been on decades at this point, correct? So,
But I think you're saying something different from what I'm saying, is what I'm telling you.
okay.
I'm talking about the traffic to everybody else that's traveling McIngvale Road. Yes, they can handle the traffic. They're gonna be there. They're gonna be there until the traffic clears.
But his
SROs.
words were, we will not notice 100 extra cars. Those were his words.
The SROs, yes.
Yeah, so he said, Commissioner Jordan's saying, yeah, the police officers may not notice it, but everybody dropping their kids off at school or your daycare facility will notice it, is what.
And I'm okay with it as it is. I like it. I think we need the daycare. But I want to be able to revisit this to determine whether or not it's working smoothly, whether or not it's okay, with the expectation that we'll just try to find a way to fix it and make it better whenever the conditional use.
Yeah, I think, can we clarify that too, because I think that's where my mind is. It's not that 5 years, well, that's it, your time's up. It's, let's just revisit in 5 years and say, hey, it's working smoothly, let's give you another 10 years. Or if it's not working, what can we do to help you make it even better 5 years from now and then continue on forward? I don't think that's too big of an ask as a conditional use.
I'm not saying it's too big of an ask.
Yeah.
I think that in terms of what we're willing to invest into the city of Hernando, given this, I think that 10 to 20 years is a typical ask. I did seek.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Can I just ask you a question, Ms. Dees? What is can you tell me what the value in the difference between 5 and 20 years for this specific, not the fact that it's a daycare need in the city of Hernando. What's the value of the difference between 5 years and 20 years? What benefit are you getting out of an extra 15 years when what we're asking is just the opportunity to revisit, just to make sure that the city is doing okay with the traffic?
I think that's a great question. In terms of my perspective, what the benefit is that we are ensured by the commissioners in the city of Hernando that we're not going to be kicked out per se. They have our own property and that.
That's not what this conditional use is.
I'm gonna bet you that if we tried to kick you out in 5 years, the 100 parents that have kids there would be up here sitting in these seats.
Well, and I would love.
I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Yeah,
like,
but you
no,
understand too, my
kicked 'em
role,
out.
in my job is, hey, I'm here representing the church, right? I'm here representing this new venture. We have basically a test pilot of this per se in the city of Olive Branch. We did have to get a conditional use with them as well. And there wasn't as much pushback per se, with the city of Olive Branch. And so for us, I think it feels like a partnership. And I'm great with pushback, but I feel like the parameters keep changing. And so I think if I'm asking for 20, you're saying 5, that's what you're willing to give? Or is that the consensus of all the commissioners? Is that something that we discuss or vote on? Awesome.
It's hopefully their motion, so I think they're just asking for your feedback.
Yeah. I would prefer longer. And I would prefer longer just basically built on you guys are entrusting in us that we're gonna do everything we can to keep the city of Hernando safe just as much. I have gone to great lengths to be able to seek that advice. I heard you. I took that feedback, Commissioner Max, Commissioner Thorne, Commissioner Sapley, what you guys were saying. And I took it to heart. I did exactly what you were asking. And so tonight, as I'm presenting back, I'm presenting based on the original, hey, this is what we're asking for. I feel like we're satisfying these safety requirements. And I understand what you're saying, but I guess I'm having trouble understanding what your concern is. Let's say that property does sell. Do you feel like we're gonna all of a sudden just be like, hey, it's a free-for-all. Everybody make a left-hand turn. You know, we're still gonna be sending traffic the same way. And by that time, I know you have new parents, but you don't have new parents every single year. There is a continuance. So,
Well, let's rewind a bit. Last month, when we were discussing this application, we never got to the conditional use time period because we spent all of our time discussing the traffic concerns, and that's when we recommended having a conversation with police. Commissioner Jordan wasn't here. One of his first statements sitting here tonight was his concern is the 20 years. So we never discussed the length of the conditional use last month. So the traffic situation has been solved.
okay.
I think we can all agree on that. The conditional use to have a daycare in that building has been solved. We agree on that. That's a need. What's on the table right now is 20 years, the right number. That's the only, and like you said, you're investing in the city by providing a daycare, a huge need. Our job is to also invest in the future of the city. That's why it's called a planning commission. We're planning for the future, and we have to somehow predict that as best we
Well,
can.
that's what I was gonna say, Commissioner Thorne, in terms of like, I asked, that's where I ended last time, was like, what will it look like in 20 years?
We don't know.
And I said, I know. So you have a hard job here, plan for the future and.
Well, we just make recommendations and help control the planning so that it's easier for everybody as we start going forward. So, as we move forward.
This is Zach Wall, he's here as a contractor that's worked with us.
But also longtime member and friend of Life Fellowship now.
And name and address.
My name is Zach Wall, my address is 2275 Getwell Road in Nesbit. And as I'm sitting here listening, one of the things that one of our friends, the CFA for the church brought up last time was the 20-year period, because there's financing involved is definitely a concern. So the thought that I'm having as I'm hearing is we're just wanting a guarantee that we can stay open for 20 years. Would it be possible to do a 20-year conditional permit with the condition of coming back in 5 years to review the traffic plan?
I don't know if that's possible, but that's all I care about. I mean, that's good with me.
I'll have to defer
I'm not sure that's possible.
to,
That's certainly something I can speak about with the city attorney. I'll have to get back with you about that. It's a bit different when you're granting a conditional use with the specifics of the traffic study time.
Could we do a conditional use on the use of the daycare and a separate conditional use on the traffic plan? But is the traffic plan deemed a conditional? That's not a conditional use. That's not a separate conditional use.
I think it's all tied in together.
And that's something they're agreeing to do.
And like I said,
Yeah, if they voluntarily agree to do that, could we put that in our motion?
That's what I would need to.
Yeah.
Shoot, I don't know.
I just would like, whatever motion, there would be certainty of what is or what is not approved. I think that would be too ambiguous,
Yeah.
meeting their purposes.
Sure.
And like I said, we understand your statement, about the finances, but unfortunately, we cannot take finances into consideration. Like, everybody knows the reason behind it. You want to ensure you can operate. I know there's loans, but unfortunately, we can't take finances into our consideration.
But the very first criteria we have to take into consideration is congestion and traffic hazards. The very first criteria.
And we addressed that, which you tell us.
All right.
So what would happen is whatever motion that gets approved up here, you have 10 days to appeal to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. You can just come right back. If it's not the years you want, you can appeal to them and see what they say. That's the process.
I think that's where the confusion, not the confusion, but I think that's where we're getting tripped up and brought it up, that the conditional use for this application, the conditional use for a daycare in that building at that place for a certain length of time. What we're discussing is the traffic congestion concerns tied to that conditional use, which are two separate issues.
But it's part of it. Part of the approval or
Well,
denial.
Can I ask a question just to follow up on what Commissioner Thorne said earlier? He asked you that, about the construction of this building, if approval of a daycare was going to determine whether or not the building was built? And you said no. So you have plans, regardless of whether it's going to be used for a daycare or not, you have plans to build that building?
We have plans to build a building.
Okay. So,
It would change in terms of, hey,
but there would still be financing involved, there'll still be construction, there's still going to be financing involved, regardless of whether there's a daycare or not, correct? Okay. So, from that standpoint, what we decide tonight doesn't affect your plans on constructing the building. Only whether or not you'll be using it as a daycare. So I think it's reasonable to be able to set, I'll tell you this, we sat here, was it last meeting when we had the lady that came back a year ago, we gave her conditional use for her therapy center. Gave her a year to start out with. She invested in that. She invested in starting a company in the city, knowing she really was only approved for that year. However, when she came back, we extended it much longer because everything was going well. I don't think anybody's plan here would be at all to try and hamstring you in a daycare when we all agree that it's needed, right? So I think it's reasonable to be able to say, let's put a timeline to where we can just come back and revisit. And if there are any problems, be able to deal with them before they become a much larger issue. And the longer the timeline is, the bigger the issue gets before we get an opportunity to deal with it. And especially if it's not going to determine whether you construct that building or not anyway.
correct.
That's good.
I appreciate those words, Commissioner Southwick. I do think that it is an investment in trust. They were all going to be here. Because, I don't know how long your tenure is, right? How long is your tenure on this board, this planning commission?
It just depends on the alderman.
It's not set in stone.
We serve at the pleasure of the alderman.
Okay,
We're not elected.
okay. So there's no appointment time. So in 5 years, we could also, every single person be the same person in this room, and we all know where we stand. Okay. What about in 10 years?
Could be. Who's the longest tenured? Are you the longest tenured, Hawkins? Are you the longest tenured?
Mr. Ashworth and Keith were on here when I got here.
Too long.
So, it's normally not a one-year deal.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Do we need to sit here?
Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety. All right. Is there a motion to approve, deny, or table this item?
I'll make a motion to grant conditional use approval to Compel Church for a daycare facility to be located on the west side of McIngvale Road, north of Dilworth in sections 7, Township 3, and Range 7, specifically 1835 McIngvale Road, for a period of 5 years, at which time the applicant shall return to the Planning Commission for an evaluation and a time extension request, subject to staff comments and based upon the following: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that the conditional use shall comply with the Compel Church Hernando Daycare proposal for traffic flow on McIngvale between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, and the map is included in the application.
One quick note on that motion, does that time limit run from the issuance of the certificate of occupancy or from right now? Because that's come up in other projects in the past, where there's a year lead time or more with the construction of the building.
I would say
Certificate,
yeah,
I'm good with
occupancy.
certificate of occupancy.
Because it could be under
That's fine.
construction a year or longer.
Well, they may not start for 6 months.
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. The next item is PL 1843, Pleasant Hill Express C4. Request for a rezoning from AR to C4. The subject property is located on the southwest corner of McIngvale and Pleasant Hill Road, specifically 933 Pleasant Hill Road in Section 30, Township 2, Range 7. Byron Houston, representing our own. Mr. Cardozo, will please present planning staff report and comment.
Yes, sir. This is PL 1843. The request is for a zoning map amendment and preliminary development plan approval for the Pleasant Hill and McIngvale C4 proposal. The specific site address is 933 Pleasant Hill Road. Shane King is here tonight on behalf of Byron Houston, who's representing the owner of the property. The request is to rezone the property from agricultural residential zoning to C4 plain commercial. The legal description is included in your staff report. A little background on the C4 plain commercial, it's very similar to a PUD, and so the text you see in this document would be the governing text for the property. The site plan, the uses particularly would be tied to this application. So this is not straight zoning, it is tied to the uses proposed in this staff report. The future land use plan for our general development plan identifies this as rural residential land use designation. There's a variety of subsets, and I've included all of those in your staff report. The most applicable of the land use density policy is that non-residential land uses should be encouraged within residential neighborhoods only when they provide necessary convenience activities and don't require service area greater than that neighborhood. The discussion portion of your staff report does include the approval and denial criteria for this application, and I'll read those for the record. How this proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, why the existing zoning district classification of the property is inappropriate or improper, and what major economic, physical, or social changes, if any, have occurred in the vicinity of the property that were not anticipated by the general development plan, and that substantially alters the basic character of the area, which makes the proposed amendment of the zoning district map appropriate. And the applicant did provide responses to each of those in the staff report. As I mentioned, this is C4, so the renderings, site plans, and uses are tied to this application. The lot does have access to centralized water and sewer, and then all road improvements will be subject to city requirements for McIngvale and Pleasant Hill Road. Tonight's recommendation will be heard at the Board of Aldermen on September 17th, next Tuesday, so tonight's for everybody here, tonight's action is a recommendation to the board. We will carry that recommendation to the 17th of September. I did include proposed motions to approve, deny, and table in your staff report, and the full text of the proposal is in your staff report as well, with the associated maps, as you usually see. Shane's here tonight to represent the application, and I'm available if you got any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Cardozo? Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
Good evening, I'm Shane King. My address is, our office address is 1207 Office Park Drive in Oxford, Mississippi. We are representing the property owner and our client, and we are proposing to develop that 4-acre lot on the southeast corner of Pleasant Hill and McIngvale Road. There is an existing structure on site. I believe it's a house with a garage, gravel driveway, and with it being already an existing structure, like Mr. Cardozo said, is already, I think the sewer is septic, so we are going to have plans to pump and connect to a sanitary sewer line somewhere. I think it's further east. I think it might be the same line that's providing utility to the school. But there is water, there is electric handy on site. Now, the rezoning, like Mr. Cardozo stated, there is a future land use listed under the general development plan that I found online that was showing a planned corridor. Now, I believe that the C4 would be applicable given its location to Pleasant Hill and McIngvale, because in the general development code, it lists McIngvale Road as being a principal arterial road, which is for planned corridors, C4 specifically, they want the C4 zoning focused around arterial road. And we believe that it conforms to that aspect of the general development code. Now, with the new school being constructed to the southeast of our site, the anticipated increase in traffic volumes, we are proposing to widen the eastbound lane of Pleasant Hill Road as well as the southbound lane of McIngvale to not impair the level of service of those roads. McIngvale Road is already northbound, southbound with a center turn lane, but we want to provide a little more safety, get anybody traveling southbound on McIngvale a right turn out of the traffic lane, because there is going to be, peak hours are going to be, early in the morning, late or mid-afternoon for pickup and drop off. And that also kind of segues into the major economic and physical changes of the area. With the school development going on, our client is, aiming to develop in a prime location, which this lot on the southeast corner, southwest corner, is highly desirable. Now, there are going to be lots of, every time I come to a rezoning, we always get some feedback about traffic safety. So, widen the roads, hopefully improving the level of service of those roads will be, a bonus. But a lot of environmental concerns are based around underground storage tanks, especially at service stations. And NDEQ has very strict regulations on underground storage tanks. Tons of redundancies, tons of monitoring. They must be installed by an NDEQ qualified installer. And as of October 1st in 2008, all new underground storage tanks have to have secondary containment systems checked every 30 days and repaired within 90 days if there ever is a leak. And there are certain regulations on tank venting, so we can, all that can be handled, if we proceed through our site design review. But yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for hearing us out. I do believe this would be a great addition, especially with the school going in, and I believe widening the roads, and especially right there at the intersection, would help increase some of the safety concerns that would be generated by the increased traffic.
Any question, Mr. Houston? Thank you. Anyone in support against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Hawkins. My name is Joseph Naaman, and I represent Mike Alanani, who's a neighbor in that area. My office address is not 291 Mosher Street on Hernando Square. Mr. Alanani and a number of his fellow residents have expressed a number of concerns. I was retained with Brad Palmacher yesterday. We spent the last few hours this afternoon, most of today, preparing for this matter. And in reviewing it, we have had a couple issues that were raised by my client and his neighbors. And Austin, this is something that my office prepared. And may I present this to the commissioners? This is just a brief summary that some of the concerns that were addressed, and I'm not going to go into detail with them. I want to go over 2 or 3 important points that were raised that I think this board needs to take into consideration before granting a conditional use from an AR to a C4, considering that once that C4 occurs, although subject to the conditions of this agreement, of their proposal, it is also, it's also violent, basically, and there's some issues that one, as a concerned resident of the Hernando area, I've lived in Hernando for 26 years. Last year, I moved, 2 years ago, we moved about a half a mile south of town, and we're eventually going to be absorbed by the city in the near future. But needless to say, the points that my clients and some of these neighbors have expressed to me that seems to I believe, need to be addressed by this board to the applicant are following. For instance, it's possible, you always hear the possibility of spot zoning. Every parcel in that general area, connected parcel, is zoned AR. And in the comprehensive plan that is going to be recently, I think, in plan to be adopted by the city in 27, it is a possibility. And when viewing the comprehensive plan, that proposed location is also AR. Now, One issue that he raised that, and that is in that packet, we've addressed that issue as well. Obviously, some of the neighbors are concerned about, have environmental concerns, which are addressed in MEDQ. Any gas station that's constructed in DEQ wants them like a fine-tooth comb. We've addressed that as well. But one issue that I want to discuss, and she brought up, is C4 zoning, which is an arterial road. Granted, McIngvale Road at this juncture may meet that definition, but the biggest 800-pound gorilla in the room is Pleasant Hill Road in its current condition. Every person in this area has driven on Pleasant Hill Road, and when the school happens, which will be 5 to 6 years from now, we're going to have an immense amount of traffic, a traffic disaster for the 9 months out of the year, between 6:30 and 9 o'clock every morning. And I think that that's one issue that needs to be addressed. Now, an arterial roadway in the city is defined by the National Traffic Engineering Handbook. It is basically a road that has access needs which demand a location on a major arterial roadway. Now, what that is a high-capacity urban road that sits below or near interstates, subject to traffic signals, and are designed for high traffic and multiple widening lanes designed for higher speed and traffic volumes. At the present time, Pleasant Hill does not meet that definition. Now, also, there are issues that also need to be addressed regarding the location of the driveways on the north side of the proposed parcel. That is an issue that seems to be, particularly with the arterial roadways, those, C4 has requirement that it makes sure that those exits and entrances do not interfere with the free movement of traffic or create a hazard to the public right-of-way. Now, the main thing that I had a concern with was, I understand that they have proposed a turn lane. And looking at Exhibit F, I could not tell, and I think the commission needs to address this, whether they have made consideration in their proposed site for the expansion of Pleasant Hill Road. My understanding is the city's ultimate plans to work when the school comes into effect will be to turn it into essentially a five-lane intersection, very similar to what the city has done with Valpay and McIngvale Road. That would result in the entrance on the north side of the property. That would require a turn lane in the middle, northbound or southbound. In addition, it would also require a turn lane on the northernmost parcel. And there may be a right-of-way issue that I see with that, because if it's a standard turn lane, it may go additional 30 feet off the north side of that lot, which, to satisfy the C4's guidelines of a 50-foot setback, that building may have to be, the location of that building, the tanks may have to be addressed. Finally, I think what the city needs to address before granting, perhaps, I don't know if they presented a traffic study, I did not catch that when Mr. Dorsey made his statement, but we need to, there's an issue that is going to happen at that location. We're going to have, when that school opens up, an immense amount of flow traffic. And we need to make sure that if a C4 is put there, that there's sufficient traffic safeguards, and in addition, any right-of-way that may need to be required for the parcel will not affect the setbacks as required by the C4, the city's zoning, and also state environmental regulation. Finally, the convenience issues. Very familiar with that location. There are two new gas stations just over a mile from this location at I-55, and there'll probably be more in the future. There's a large 8-pump station to the east on Pleasant Hill. And further, and my understanding is that south at I-269, there is going to be a major commercial development there, multiple large gas stations. So I don't know if this need is necessary at this time, because I just don't see whether or not this is a necessary convenience activity based upon the application at this time. Now, the applicant has raised a very good point that they are eventually going to expand, but that is not now. And before that school is constructed, I think this commission needs to address a few matters regarding the traffic flow, also the right-of-way issues, and whether the proposed site has taken into consideration eminent domain, and how that eminent domain may affect the part of the portion of the property that's proposed. And I would just refer you with regard to any environmental issues that we've raised in that packet that I handed out. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're representing, is it Mr. Alnani?
Yes, sir, Mike Allen.
Okay, and so his address is 731 Pleasant Hill Road? Okay, and that, from looking at it, that is a service station?
Yes, sir, it's on the west side of Pleasant Hill Road.
So right there, just a little bit down from where
Yes,
they're
sir, it's
proposing
walking
this
down the
one?
road. Yes, sir.
So let me ask you this, what environmental issues are y'all concerned about that would not be proposed, being introduced by his as well?
I think mainly the neighbors and Mike's neighbors have addressed the additional, gas, basically, the fumes and all of those matters. There is a gas station there. I believe they would like another one there. As I stated previously, MDEQ, when that building is done, they go over with a fine-tooth comb. My biggest concern, I think, and Mr. Allen's biggest concern, is how can the traffic flow? Right now, it is an incredibly busy intersection. I know the city is going to eventually plan a light, and I think the applicant needs to take into consideration in his application how that proposed parcel will be addressed with regard to any right-of-way issues that the city may have to look into when the expansion occurs. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
My name is Stuart Lott. I live at 109 Prater Street, Bahia, Mississippi. I'm here representing the family that lives at the current location. I'll start with a quick story. I remember when I was a kid, my father had a business in Olive Branch, and heating air business. We still have it. There was a guy going to open up next door with another heating air business. Do you think my dad wanted him to open the door? He didn't, because he was worried about competition. So I think that's clearly what we have here, in my opinion. Now, I'm not really here to address that. I'm here with my wife and my sister-in-law to address the human factor. There's a couple that's been here in this area since '85 that lives in that house. Unfortunately, they didn't do a great job preparing for their later years. And they need medical assistance on a more permanent basis. In order for that to take place, they need to be able to sell this property. And there is a human factor that a lot of people overlook sometimes. And I get it. We are Hernando people until recently, and our kids went to Lewisburg, and we're concerned about that area over there where our school was. I'll be honest with you though, when the store came in across the street, it was more of a blessing because it was close. Kids could just go right across the street and get a snack and go right back to school. We didn't have a safety issue because it was right across the street. With that being said, not to mention, Sweeney now comes all the way through to McIngvale. My father-in-law and my mother-in-law are in their 70s now. My father-in-law is a Vietnam veteran, has one leg. My mother-in-law is a severe diabetic. And we're drawing off of our incomes to have to take care of them right now. So I just want to address the human factor here. And, to take note that the person that said he was representing a resident of that area is actually a store. It's not a very good looking store. I'm just being honest. And there's no turning lane there. we're talking about putting a turning lane down by ours. I would just ask everybody to take a look at the human factor and what's coming that way anyway. It's coming. Right down the road, Delta Landing's coming. It was probably approved by you guys, I'm assuming. There's gonna be a need right there for a facility to be able to sell drinks, food, gas, that sort of thing. I appreciate you.
Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe when we approved, Delta Landing has a convenience store in it, doesn't it?
No,
No, it
Doesn't?
it does
The
not.
one south of the, of 69, I know does.
That's at Getwell does.
At Getwell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Getwell,
it's on the other one.
the collection at Getwell is the first final plat that is the C-store at Getwell on 269.
Okay.
Delta does not.
Delta does not,
No.
okay.
They have no plans for that. It's not in the approved.
I'm Courtney Ruffin. I live right across the street at 914 Pleasant Hill Road from your father-in-law, mother-in-law. My son is the one who took their garbage down every week and put it back up for me. So I understand the human factor.
Would you repeat your last name for her?
Ruffin, R-U-F-F-I-N, 914 Pleasant Hill. The gas station, not so much my issue, it's the traffic. And the Pleasant Hill is so small. How are we gonna add a turning lane? To us, that's my concern. My concern is the traffic. We already got the school right there. I'm right across from the property. So the school's there. We went from having wrecks every day at Sweeney and McIngvale. We went from having wrecks every day at Sweeney and McIngvale when they opened Sweeney. Now we're having maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Plus when we get high schoolers there, hopefully they will put a light up there. Fingers crossed. But our concern, most of the neighbors who I spoke with is the traffic. And why do we need another store there? I get competition. I don't care about the gas station. I don't own either. But me living there, my property, us having extra traffic. Pleasant Hill already has a lot of traffic. I'm sure Hernando is the same. I remember, I'm only 38, but I remember when Commerce was very small and we only had Pizza Inn and Piggly, Big Star. I remember that, and now it's huge in the traffic. So that is our concern as neighbors.
Hi, my name's Jesse Obstead. I live at 1080 Dogwood Hollow Drive, right down the street. And I do not own a gas station. But I am a small business owner, and I also am a parent of young children. My daughter goes to the middle school down McIngvale, and I drive that road every day. And I'm also heavily involved in some of the projects in the new Hernando High School, which will be starting up this very next year, you know, and we've been down here for the Delta Landing situation, and we understand that, you know, you cannot prevent growth. It's gonna happen. But is it necessary to put another business right there in that intersection where I personally had to sit and watch fatality wrecks happen? You know, and lots of, I mean, I can't even count how many wrecks. I've lived here for 5 years. And I just wanted to say that for me and my family, the thought of having another gas station, because, I mean, we burn a lot of fuel, but we have 4 or 5 within, you know, a half a mile. You know, and the Delta Landing thing and the school, I understand that there's probably something that'll eventually happen, but I don't see the necessity of that firing up right now. That high school is almost completed. It will be in school next year. And let's see how that plays out, because there's gonna be a lot of students that go through that thing. You're gonna have a lot of teenage drivers going there. There's gonna be a lot of, and so if we're talking about putting in another gas station, that's gonna essentially be large enough to take a semi-truck, right? So 18-wheeler traffic, you know, I just came down here to just voice my concerns with my families, and not as a gas station owner, just as somebody that drives that road every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else support or against this item?
Hello, my name is Ruby Walker. I live at 1267. I live at 1267 Brody. My concern is, like the gentleman was just saying about the 18-wheeler traffic. Also, the need for, I mean, we already have 3 gas stations within less than a mile of each other. And for me, because I work night shifts, like overnight, it's the noise, the tankers, that come and refill the gas station. Because I can already hear them coming up and down the streets, and that's just gonna bring more noise. So that's my concern.
Thank you.
My name's James Allen. I live at 970 Steel Road. And I agree with him. I think with the service station we already got there, it's plenty. I mean, you have all the buses coming out through there every afternoon. My nephew goes to Hernando, at the high school right now. We're going there next year. So, I mean, it's just too much. I mean, you got, well, all the buses coming there, then you have all that traffic coming out of the store. You know, right now it's dangerous enough already. I don't know if y'all go down there very much. But that going down to Pleasant Hill right now, and you're just waiting on that to happen. So, that's all I got to say.
My name is Ashley Patterson, and I live at 731 Pleasant Hill in Desmond, Mississippi. My concerns about it is the opening of the roads and adding a turning lane is not going to cut it. There was a wreck just this afternoon right there at the, and they are trying to build, or they're trying to build the, matter of fact, right in front of the sign. And it's just, the kids coming in and out. My brother goes to high school up there next year. I don't want him, he's not the best driver, the kids aren't the best drivers. So with all the wrecks and stuff going on, it's just not gonna be a good idea, I don't think. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mrs. Maurice Thompson. I reside at 990 Pleasant Hill Road. I am on the north side where Pleasant Hill and Sweeney is. You know, Sweeney has been opened up now from Star Landing, coming down north. Once it gets to Pleasant Hill, that's where it turns into McIngvale. If you want to be entertained now, get your yard chair, come sit at our property, right on the edge. So many accidents this year alone. A lot of carelessness. Someone has said there's a lot of young drivers out there. I know. I fear for my grandson. He's 19, been driving now for several years. But when he comes off our hill and tries to make a left turn to go out east, I fear for him. On up the road on Pleasant Hill, I fear for him. Because I know the type of drivers there are out there now. I'm from a different generation. I respect the road. Not everybody does. That is an extremely busy corner, and it's getting worse. Approximately 20 accidents now, as far as I know. And I know I have missed some. I'm retired now. I'm widowed. I'm there. I have a family there. I would love to keep my family there. I've been there a good 40 years, so you know I don't want to pick up and go anywhere else. I don't want my life disrupted because of what someone wants to put on that corner on the opposite side. I know there's going to be a school. It's already up. It's just incompleted. I know there's something on the opposite side of the road where the school is being built. That's going to be an even busier area. When I get out of my driveway and hit Pleasant Hill and make that right coming south, I would love to continue taking that road to come to Hernando because of what's going on now with all the traffic, the 18-wheelers, the construction companies, you know, they've got stuff going and coming. You know, I'm surprised I don't have nails all in my tires now from them losing different things. You know, so right now it's a busy area and it's going to get worse. It has already gone from bad to worse and it's going to get worse. I know there's no such word as worser, but it's going to get worse. And if you just come and sit, get in your car, ride Pleasant Hill, make the right. If you're coming, if you're southbound on Sweeney, and when you get to that corner, you will see certain times of the day it is extremely hard to cross Pleasant Hill in a vehicle. That's one reason why there's been so many accidents. Nobody respects the other driver. And the gentleman that got up and spoke about his in-laws, some of the nicest people in the world, you know? So they're having issues, we will have more issues, they're gonna have more issues, you know? I would hate for such a busy place to be placed directly in front of my driveway. I really would. I don't have a problem with progress, but to put something there at that side like that, I don't want it. I really don't. And I know I'm not the only one. So thank you all for hearing me out.
Austin, while someone else is coming up, and I just ask this, with the high school going in there, are there plans for that having a light?
As a part of the pavement project, currently right now it's a 4-lane road with 2 bike lanes. There's like almost $5 million repaving project going to happen in the spring that the board and mayor are funding. As a part of that, there's a restriping plan to take it to a 5-lane cross section.
On McIngvale.
On McIngvale. So you will have a center turn lane on McIngvale. And the other piece of that is the city, or someone is funding the light at the intersection to happen in conjunction with the repaving project.
And that's going to happen around the time of the school opening? Before the school opens. So a lot of these issues that we're hearing about now, as far as the traffic on Mount Pleasant, the trouble crossing and all of that will be resolved once the light goes in.
I mean,
Because it'll be managing that.
There will be a light and the road will be improved at 5-lane cross section on McIngvale, but not on Pleasant Hill. It will have a turn lane and intersection improvement enough for the right turn, just like it is now. But the major improvement.
No, that's what I was asking about, was there plans for one up at Pleasant Hill? Not right there at the entrance to the school, but up at Pleasant Hill where we're talking about here.
Yes, there's a plan for a light to go at Sweeney/McIngvale and Pleasant Hill Road.
Okay.
My name is Walter Ballard, at 2219 Legends. Been there about 20 years. The last 8 years, traveling to 55 on Pleasant Hill is my daily routine, 5 days a week. The last year or two, the traffic is really picked up. I know it's going to pick up more when the high school opens. My main concern would be, I wouldn't want anything that would encourage more 18-wheelers, big trucks on Pleasant Hill. If any of you guys travel up and down there, it's a quiet 2-lane road. There's trees, there's shrubs all the way up to the streets, and I just don't see how big rigs would be able to respond in the mornings when people are trying to get to work or maybe trying to get their kids to school. So my main concern would be the increase in big trucks possibly. But everything else I agree with. The big trucks is my main concern. Thank you.
Anyone else in support or against this item?
My name is Wanda Harris. I live at 84 Pleasant Hill Road. I also know the gentleman that he's talking about, very nice guy. But we keep hearing, addressing what he said, McIngvale. McIngvale is already wide, and it already has a turn lane. Sweeney, which just opened up to Church Road, is 2 lanes. Pleasant Hill is 2 lanes. So what is going to be done about those 2 streets as far as all this traffic is coming? And so I don't want any more traffic. And like other people say, it's Rick at that corner almost every day now. It's just Rick City. And those are grown-ups. What about when the kids start driving through there? That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Any question for the commissioners? All right, is there a motion to approve, deny, or table this item?
I make a motion to deny, recommended denial of Board of Aldermen of the rezoning requested by Shane King with Houston Engineering, representing the owner of the property for a rezoning and preliminary development plan for 4 acres from A to C4 planned commercial. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of McIngvale and Pleasant Hill Road, specifically 933 Pleasant Hill Road, based on the following findings, 1, 2, and 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Sapling?
Aye.
Commissioner Mack?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Motion to deny this item passes. And once again, it's a recommendation to the Mayor of Alderman, Board of Aldermen,
Yes,
so.
sir. Next Tuesday, the 17th, will be heard by the Mayor Board of Aldermen going forward with a negative recommendation.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.